Today is the 8th of June, and believe it or not, someone is up a tree. This is the big Deshojo maple in front of my house, and I've got Josh up the tree, and he's about to separate the air layers. We started these air layers rather late last year, but because we didn't have enough time for it to develop roots, we left it till the spring, and look at it, lo and behold, the roots everywhere. It's coming out of the bag, in fact. So we're going to separate this and we show you the whole process again of how we pot it up. You look at the roots, it's absolutely bursting from the bag. It's coming out from underneath the bag as well. So, and that trunk is at least 2 inches in diameter, probably a little more. So this is going to be a large tree, and we'll show you how we deal with it. So rather than just prune the branches and throw them away, we air lay them. And Deshojo is a very desirable variety. And if you hold it up, please, Agatha, we've got Agatha here from Germany.
Hello
So
again.
we will see the shape of the tree. Hold it vertical so that I can see the shape of the tree. So I chose this because it's already got some movement in the trunk. So just by trimming it, we can get a very decent bonsai. So we'll show you how we're going to trim this particular air layering. Such a huge air layering, about 5 foot in height. Okay, and then there's some more. And that root ball is also completely crammed full of roots. This tree, by the way, was planted in 1990. I imported this tree from a village called Yamagata in Kyushu province near Fukuoka. If you hold that, please, Matthew, we'll show the root ball how densely packed the roots are. Look at the roots on that. It's only when the roots are packed like that should you remove it. And the next stage is to pot it up into a pot. Okay. So here we are. We've removed 4 large air layerings. And just to show you some detail, look at it. It's every bit 5 foot 6 inches tall. I could plant this as an entire tree and get some more air layerings, but where do you stop? So let me show you the details of each of these just to reinforce the learning process for people who have not done air layering before. We usually remove the air layering when it has enough root. You see there is quite a lot of root there. When I remove the root ball in a minute, you will see how much root ball there is. The next thing to do is to remove some of the foliage. And the reason for doing that is because the root ball here is very small and it doesn't have the capacity or the ability to take in the moisture to supply all this foliage. That's logical, isn't it? So the less foliage you have, the less stress you put on the tree to pump all that water up to the tree. By the way, you notice that when I choose a branch, I always choose a branch which is quite interesting. You see the curve on that? It's already looking like a bonsai. So that's why I've chosen this. And all this top part, sadly, I'm going to cut it off. I don't need all that. Also helps to reduce the transpiration. Even this I will remove. This I'll remove. I remove all these unnecessary leaves, but leaves sufficient to sustain the tree. So that is what I'm going to plant up in a flower pot with sphagnum moss. So that 5 foot tree has become no more than 70 centimeters from this to this. Let's look at this one. This is a large multi-trunk. If I wanted to make this into a garden tree, I would not be so drastic, or I could make it into a large bonsai. What I don't want to fall into the trap is to keep making more and more air layerings. Okay, so reducing the foliage again gradually. Let's go through the process. So remember, if you hold it up, we are removing the foliage so that we don't put so much demand on the root system to pump the water to the leaves. See, that could make a lovely bonsai because it's like a multi-trunk tree. But as I say, I can't keep doing air layering forever and a day. There comes a time when I have to stop. Seems a shame, isn't it? All that lovely stuff. Can you imagine if you were in a propagating nursery and could take cuttings? There would be thousands of little plants you can get from just this air layering alone. And for those who want to know how to make cuttings, at this time of the year we use the semi-hard wood which has just turned hard like that. That is what we call semi-hard wood. That could be a bit stiff, but if you take a heel cutting like that, that would be the ideal size of cutting to make, like that. Okay, so let's keep reducing the foliage. So what I'm doing is in effect producing a large bonsai just from pruning. So that's, if you hold it up please Matthew, we can see. I still think there's too much foliage. It's going to put excessive demands on the tree, on the new roots I mean, and the air layering would struggle to survive. So the less demands I put on the root system, the quicker it will come through. This is the trick not many people learn to do. They will pot it up straight away. And there are certain other things which I do and other people don't do. I will reveal in a minute. So you can see it's already the shape of a lovely bonsai, you know, like a multi-trunk bonsai. There you are. So straight away, instant bonsai. Okay, so that's number 2. Let's see number 3. Number 3 is this one. Again, look at the roots on that. Take a look at that. Look at that. That is really great. Certain varieties of maples, and the Deshojo is one of them, which are very prolific in producing roots. Not all maples do the same thing because some trees are very shy to produce roots. If you can kindly hold this for us. Okay, so again, far too much foliage. Can you imagine that little root ball sustaining all the leaves, pumping moisture to the leaves? No way can it survive. So let's get rid of some of this. Put less pressure on the tree. If you look at it in a dispassionate way, much of what you see in nature applies to the way we live as well. Now, because that root system is rather small, being able to sustain the pressure of feeding all these leaves is very stressful. So if you are not able or don't have the capacities to sustain pressure, you have to reduce the pressure. So this is what I'm doing. I'm reducing the pressure of this air layering by removing these unnecessary, in my view, unnecessary foliage, which is putting a lot of pressure on this tree. So I'm de-stressing the tree in effect. Look at that, bunches of that. How much moisture will that bunch of leaves require just to survive? Look at that again. This is where, as I say, a lot of people try to plant the air layering straight away without removing some of the foliage. This is absolutely critical. This stage is critical. If you don't do it like this way, I'm not saying it won't be successful, but the chances of success are limited. So I'm now de-stressing or removing stress on the root system by removing these stressful demands on the tree in the form of excessive foliage. So I'm not putting stress on the root system by doing this. So I think that should be enough. Again, a tree which is almost complete as a bonsai. Okay, now let's look at number 4. Now this one is also very interesting. You look at the branch I chose. This was an heirloom from last year, and these branches here were chosen because of the twisted shape. So straight away, I can do this. Seems a shame, but needs must. So I've got an instant bonsai. Instant bonsai here. You must be asking, why didn't I remove the foliage when I was making the air layering? I didn't remove the foliage while they were being air layered because the more leaves you keep at the top, the more activity it generates in the bark and the root system. So by having a lot of foliage, the activity of the plant is enhanced. And when it's enhanced, it also enhances the activity of the roots. So everything has a logical reason. Okay, now that I've done this, I'm going to put all the attention to the root system, and that is how we're going to take this air layering forward. So the future direction of the tree is something like this. And we'll now pot them up and we'll show you the next stage. We keep discovering more and more air layers that have rooted. Oh gosh!
That's the double.
Now this is a very interesting experiment because a number of people have asked me, can you do 2 air layerings on the same branch? Okay, now this was a very special experiment that we did. Look at the foliage at the top. If you hold it vertically, please. Okay, you see on the same branch we did 2 air layerings. We did an air layering here and we did an air layering here. Sometimes I used to wonder whether you can do it successfully, because if you air layer here, all the nourishment will go here and there won't be enough energy to go to the top part. So it doesn't usually work. So I thought, but because I like to do experiments, and this experiment seems to have worked. If I open it up, we will show you the moment of truth. And this double air layering, I think, has worked. You see, we use wire to tie so we can untie it easily. And we should have quite a lot of root there. Okay, so double air layering is successful. So we'll cut this and then we get 2 air layerings out of that. So this is the bottom part of the double air layering, and you look at the movement on that tree, ready-made tree. So if you choose your branch carefully, you can get a tree that has already got bonsai shape. And again, I'm reducing the foliage so that I don't put excessive demands on the roots, but I leave enough foliage because the foliage sucks the water up and it creates more activity in the root system. So that's a lovely air layering. And then this one again has rooted. I don't need that one. So again, we will reduce some of this. You see the Deshojos behave in this way. When the sun catches it, it's like a sunburn, and the outer leaves get this reddish color. The inside, where it doesn't get much sun, stays green. So that is the habit of Deshojo. Deshojo maple is one of the most popular varieties of Japanese maples that you can have. Again, this reminds me of my visits to these wholesale nurseries where they sell trees by the height. And I usually take my secateurs with me because I prune it on the spot, because I don't need to carry all that unnecessary branches and foliage back with me. And they say, oh, the price won't be reduced because you've reduced the height of the tree. And I tell them that I do know that. Knowing how much to cut off by way of the leaves, again, it's a matter of judgment, but I would say at least 2/3 you should remove. So this is less than a year, because these airlings were started in August of last year. August is usually a bit late to start, but we did it as an experiment, and it just shows that although it didn't form enough roots to separate in the autumn, we're separating it in the spring, late spring. So there you go, we've ended up with 6 air layerings. How good is that? So this is serious air layering. Things that we've got out of that Deshojo tree. 1, 2, 3, 6 of them, and one was a double air layering. So I'm now going to reveal the quantity of roots that are in the root ball. Little trick, we always use wire to wrap the plastic round. I don't use string because the wire is much easier to undo, and I don't cut the ends off because I can undo it so easily. Look at it, just one long piece of wire, and that's all I've used for tying the plastic around the root ball. And this is the amount of root we've got from that tree, like that. And there are more roots in there. So each of these, we will have a look. Every stage of the air layering is critical, and this, what we call the transition stage, is also very critical. Look at all that beautiful root there. Okay, this is the bottom of the double, Josh reminds me. If I can remind you, this sort of thing I remember as a boy, all the local gardeners and farmers, this is how they propagated their trees. Out in the east, this is the single most popular method for propagation. Instant results, and I remember mango trees were very easy to grow this way. Look at the roots on that one. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so it goes on. Now let me talk about putting them in the correct type of pot. The right size of pot is very important. Now clearly I wouldn't use a pot as small as that. That's stupid, isn't it? And I've got to have a pot which is quite deep. So this, I would say, is about the right size. I wouldn't use this because it's too shallow. This, in my view, is too shallow. I prefer to use a deep pot. So this is the sort of pot I will use. And let me show you what I do. Many people have their own ideas. Some people just use ordinary compost or peat. But I prefer to spend a little money and continue using the sphagnum moss, because sphagnum moss has got these magical properties and the roots just shoot through the moss, and within, I would say, 1 or 2 weeks, the entire flower pot will be crammed full of roots. And then when that flower pot is full up, I will then transfer it to proper compost. So that's what I do. And the moss should be damp. Don't use dry moss. If you have moss which is dry, just soak it overnight so that it is got signs of life in it. So let's do another one. Now this is a big one, and for this one, again, let me see, that pot might be just about enough. I think so. If you look at it from the top here, so you see it does cover it, and for it to fill that pot with roots shouldn't take too long. Look at this lovely green moss. It's all live moss. Many people complain that they can't get moss, but if you look around, you will find it. If you scarcify or rake your lawn, you'll probably find moss growing in there. I find that around my pond, where it's very wet and damp, the sphagnum moss grows naturally around the edge of the pond. So if you can find it, you don't have to buy it. We buy it in bulk, and some of our moss still comes from New Zealand. There, I believe it's a sustainable product. They may farm it, and the climate is so special that moss grows very easily in New Zealand. Even our trees that come from Japan, when they put sphagnum moss around the trees, around the top of the trees to keep it moist in transit, is moss from New Zealand. So New Zealand seems to be a rich source of this cultivated moss. And I would emphasize that it is all very sustainable. I won't go through the entire process of potting all 6 of them up, but you see that is the size of pot. And now let me show you what I do when I do the next stage, which is to make sure it doesn't rock about. If it rocks about, then the roots could break. So let's show you the next step, which is to, yes, we bring some wire. We will tie it around the posts of my greenhouse supports. This is where we bring our air layerings on, and I'm going to show you some air layerings from last year that were rooted. And the other thing, little secret I'll reveal, is that we stand it in a tray of water so that the moss is never dry. It is always wet. So with these bits of wire, I will tie it to these supports of the greenhouse so that the tree doesn't rock and shake about. And by doing that, the tree will be able to send out roots very, very easily. So that's how we keep it, and the tray of water should only have like ½ an inch to an inch full of water. This is an air layering that we took earlier this year. That's come through. Let's show you. Now these are some of the air layerings we took last year. These are all last year's air layerings. That's a maple from last year. I'm going to show you what's inside this. So let's show you this. And the moment of truth, we show you warts and all, successes and failures as well. This is an air layering that Josh made, and this was made quite late in the year, but it succeeded. Look at, that's the moss ball. Can you see the shape of the moss ball there? And we put it in a bonsai pot, and already it's grown so much. Of course, it's produced a lot of leaf, but since I don't want that tree to become unkempt and unmanageable, what are the prospects? I could make a broom style tree with that. So probably that is a possibility. So this I could use as a sacrificial branch. So we probably plant it in the pot in this fashion. These could be sacrificial, but the brim can be just the top over there. That's a sacrificial to thicken the trunk. So that will be the future direction of this tree as an air layering. So if I open the tree and show you what the roots are doing, whoa, it's tied in quite tight. Okay, I'll have to sacrifice. Okay. I never like to cut the ends because if you don't cut the ends of the wire, you can undo it very easily like so. And the moment of truth is to show you how much root has been produced in this short space of time. Okay, let's see how much root has been produced since we planted it in the autumn. I don't want to spoil the root ball. Look at that. Look at the root ball there. See how vigorous the tree is. And that is an air layering. So I can now plant it in a flower pot at this angle. Okay, so that is that one successful. That was made less than a year ago. Now this is a mountain maple that we separated again in the autumn, and you can still see the root ball there. That's the moss ball, and we potted it in compost as the second stage. After the pot had filled, there again, look at the roots on that. Very active root. I'm not going to take it out because I want more root to develop there. So this has been successful. Let me show you one or two others. There are a couple of trees that, or species that are more amenable for air layering than other varieties, and the hornbeam is certainly one of them. So this one we chose the branch because it had potential, looking like a bonsai already. Look at that tree. And look at the potential on that. Ready-made bonsai, and that was an air layering we did last June, and it rooted, and look at the roots on that. That is an air layering, less than a year old. So hornbeam and maple are very, very easy to air layer. So this is how we pot them up. So I hope you've learned something from a refresher course on air layering that we have done. So this large tree, this large hornbeam, believe it or not, is an air layering of 18 months ago. You must be wondering, how can you get such a big trunk in that small pot? Simply because this is an air layering. And if I take it out, you can see the roots that have formed on it. And if I show you the bottom of the tree, you can probably see where, look at that, that is where it was cut. That is the trunk which was separated. So there's no cheating at all. These are air layerings. So just shows how large an air layering you can make. I'm now going to put this in a larger flower pot because this pot is much too small. I want it to grow bigger. So I hope this has been a useful lesson for you on air layering. It is never a bad thing to repeat myself because I think a lot of you like repetition and repeating. You can always learn something new. You can pick up something new from what I've shown you today. So this has been a very comprehensive lesson on air layering. Thank you very much.